Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl Mahoney and I blog at marveloustales.com about books and writing. Today I'm here to talk about The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. So usually I try to give you a nice coherent, cogent, well thought out and articulated review of the books that I'm reviewing. But you guys, this one was so good, so good. So there's probably going to be a little bit of rambling going on. You've been warned. I can't show you a copy of the book because I listened to it on digital audiobook, which I recommend as well, by the way. It was a good reader. And so I can't hold it up the way I usually do. But I got it up on Amazon so I can at least show you the cover and, you get some sense of it. I don't think it's that important. I mean, it's a nice cover, but it's not that important. So the book was so good. It's a sort of alternate Earth where there is because I realize also the title really doesn't tell you anything at all either. So I will tell you what it's about. So it's sort of an alternate Earth where there are magical creatures, whole variety of magical creatures. He never really gives us an overview of, do vampires exist versus werewolves? It's more just we keep meeting individuals who have various magical abilities, and that's okay. It doesn't matter that much. And they are strictly regulated and registered, and there's some definite satire and moral going on here about racism. It's not that subtle, and that's okay. It's fine that it's not that subtle. It's a well-intended point. So our hero of the story is Linus Baker, and he works for Dykemy, the department in charge of magical youth. So the acronym is Dykemy, and that's mostly what they're called throughout the book. And he inspects orphanages that are run by Dykemy, and there are orphanages for magical children. And he gets assigned to visit this island, the house in the Cerulean Sea, where the most unusual children are. There's 6 of them. And he's sent for a month to inspect this orphanage. And really the story is about what happens to him when he goes there. And it's such a warm and fuzzy feel-good thing. This is very much a found family kind of story, and how he connects with the children on the island and with Arthur Parnassus, who is the head of the orphanage, but really he's the adoptive father, not legally, but in all emotional senses of these children. And how Linus ends up finding himself as well through this experience. It's so good. Really a lovely, lovely, lovely book. So the beginning kind of reminded me a little bit of Roald Dahl, where we're seeing Linus's existing life and the people around him, and it's kind of these larger than life but also slightly cardboard characters that are, you see them in Roald Dahl where it's too extreme to be a real person, but that's okay because we're in this kind of magical, slightly weird world, even though his original life is totally devoid of magic in any sense of the term. That's the whole point. It's very gray. He talks about that later on. It's like he never saw color before until he comes to the island. And then we're kind of in a Diana Wynne Jones book where it's these magical children and bright colors and a lot of humor with a definite moral satire undertone to it. I mean, it was lovely. It's like those others, and those are the greats of children's fantasy literature, by the way. If you don't know the names, it's a really high compliment to compare the book to them. Although I should say, they wrote children's literature. This is not really a children's book. I'm trying to think if there's anything really inappropriate. I don't think a lot, not really, no. It's more just sort of adult themes. I mean, it's talking about not even adult themes in the sense that they're inappropriate, just that they're things kids are not going to connect with in the same way. I mean, Linus's whole existential crisis at the beginning. Granted, I read a lovely book, Amos's Island, about a mouse having an existential crisis as a kid, and I loved it. But I feel like this is an existential crisis that adults are going to connect with. Linus is also our only POV character, a point of view character. So even though there are children who are a big part of this, it's an adult perspective and it's an adult view on the world, and it's how an adult ends up changing his grown-up life. So I don't know that it's really a kid's book. you know, who cares? I'm an adult. I loved it. I assume I'm mostly talking to adults. Just wanted to sort of clarify what our picture is here. So the characters were lovely. The children are so much fun. There's Lucy, which is short for Lucifer. He is literally the son of the devil. They don't like to use the word Antichrist on the island. But he's actually quite a nice 7-year-old boy. And sometimes he will like confront Linus with, oh, you know, I'm the son of the devil. I could get your insides on your outsides and bring down a rain of fire and destruction upon the earth. But also, I really love music, and let's go on an adventure today. I mean, it's weird and lovely and so great in so many ways. And there's a lot about Lucy being more than his birth, that he can choose who he's going to be. So they don't like dodge around the whole son of the devil thing, but they like approach it in a really marvelous way. There's also Sal, who is, I believe, a were Pomeranian. So he's this sort of big hulking boy who then turns into a Pomeranian, or is it a Pekingese? Now I'm not sure. Either way, tiny dog. It's great. There's Chauncey, who is probably part jellyfish. They're not really sure. He's kind of blobby with tentacles, and he dreams of being a bellhop. And he's so sincere about this. He just wants to be a bellhop. It's great. It's hilarious. There's some very, very funny parts. There's actually something a little bit touching about Chauncey and the bellhop thing, but it's also very funny at times. And that's really the whole book. It's very funny and very heartwarming while dealing with like some really serious issues. The only things that might be a little bit more adult are some of like Lucy's nightmares and things. He's talking about spiders eating his brain, and like, I don't know, that might have freaked me out when I was a kid. I don't know. But they're not particularly gory or terrible for adults to read. They're fine. It's more just sort of concepts that I think are going to resonate with adults more. See, I'm rambling. I'm circling back around to that point and back around again to, you guys, it was just so good. Really, it was so good. There's a romance in here between Linus and Arthur. I kind of felt it was coming, partially because I know enough about TJ Klune's other books, and I'm like, this is probably going to happen. It's secondary. It's nice. It's lovely. But it is secondary, really, I think, to just the whole... Linus falls in love with the family. I mean, he falls in love with Arthur, but he really falls in love with the family. And it's just so good. So yeah, go read it. Find it. It's marvelous. Bonus recommendation. I had previously read How to Be a Normal Person, also by TJ Klune. So good. So funny. I think that one's funnier. This one is more heartwarming, although that one is a little bit heartwarming too. So bonus recommendation for How to Be a Normal Person. Definitely for grown-ups. I mean, it's all adult characters and also lots and lots of pot. But the premise is Gus, who runs a video store in the present day. He rents VHS tapes. Yeah, that's as weird as it sounds. And the book knows it. The book is well aware. And he's actually a little bit like Linus in that he's kind of going along through his life and telling himself everything is fine, but it's not. And then Gus meets Casey, who is a asexual stoner hipster. They call him that a lot. And it is the worst thing that has ever happened to Gus, and he just does not know how to deal with this. But he also can't stop thinking about him, and things go from there. Also, Gus's best friends are the We Three Queens. They're these elderly women who ride mopeds and have pink leather jackets. They're marvelous. I keep using the word marvelous and lovely and so good, but that's just kind of both books, really. So The House in the Cerulean Sea was the one I was mostly talking about today. So good. Read it. Do I have any criticisms? I would have liked a little more of the world building. We never found out very much about what happens to magical adults. There's a lot of magical orphanages the kids in the primary one clearly do not have living biological parents. Well, I don't know. I guess Lucy probably does, but not, the devil's not going to raise him. Anyway, it's not real clear if all of the kids in the orphanages are in fact orphans, or if they're being, it never says that they're being separated from their parents. There's just never a mention of magical youth being raised by their parents. So it's not clear which is the norm for magical children. But we're dealing with the orphanages is the primary focus. But I would have liked a little more context on it. But, it doesn't matter. It was so good. So good. So, I'm Cheryl Mahoney. I've been talking about The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune with a bonus recommendation for How to Be a Normal Person, also by TJ Klune. Go read them because they were so good.